Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's RigER webinar that is dedicated to our RigER Academy. My name is Dasha. I'm marketing coordinator, and I will be hosting this webinar for you today. Again, today we will be talking about our learning portal, the RigER Academy. It is designed to help RigER user to onboard faster and become proficient in all aspects of oilfield operations. It features a number of courses with quizzes and certifications, and once you have your access to the Academy, you can perform your training in your own time and at your own pace. Our presenter today is Arsen, our product manager. He will go you through all available courses as for now, explain how quizzes and tests are executed. You will also see if you are getting certified at the end of the course and how. And finally, we will discuss what our plans are in terms of new courses coming this year and beginning of the next year.
Yes, thank you, Dasha. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. As Dasha has already mentioned, today's topic would be talking about RigER Academy, what it is, what we have created it for whom it is intended for, and why are we actually doing this. So let's move on and start by saying that RigER Academy is a web-based portal where you can sign up very easily just by a single email address and just providing a password. You sign up easily, and that login will provide you with the access to all the courses that we have and will have in our RigER Academy. So the enrollment to courses will be course dependent, meaning that either the users will gain instant access to the course, or you will need to have an authorization from either your company or from us to gain access to that course. So the Academy and the web portal will allow all the users to learn all the courses, to pass all the courses in their self-paced manner, in their spare time, and it's flexible for people who have a busy schedule or need to postpone some learning processes. And we have seen that this Academy courses actually are of good help before we start the live trainings and the online training, so the users gain the basic knowledge and the actual terminology of what RigER has to offer, of what RigER has inside in the software, and they actually already know how the interface looks, what terms mean in software. So it provides all of a lot of insight to people who are just starting for using RigER, and it's also useful for some experienced RigER users because it's kind of a reference point, and you can go back to some courses just to check out something, how it's done, or what consequences it can have if not done properly. Alongside with the courses, most courses will have practice tests after each chapter and will have final exams, which will determine whether the user has passed the course or whether he needs to just review some chapters and pass the exam again. Some courses and some actually chapters will allow us to provide the users with a certification. Now that entirely depends on the user to receive a certification or just to pass the course, and the certifications will be a solid proof that you have actually passed and understood all the aspects that were discussed in the course. The certifications would be issued either by just let's say an associate level, or with the industry subsectors, be it like sales, be it like dispatching, field technicians, etc. So based on the course, after passing the final exam with at least 80% mark, we will grant with a certification to the users who actually need it. So let's talk about the available courses, what we have right now. As of right now in the Academy, we have 4 published courses. We have more than 110 active users and over 130 active enrollments to those courses. And we are calling this a phase 1. a phase one because in this phase, all the courses that we have and that we will create are based on user roles. And user roles are the limitations of a user in a RigER system and a set of permissions and functions that govern the access to the system for the user. So based on a user role, whether that user is going to be in the sales or whether that user is going to be in purchases sectors or in operations, being a dispatcher or a field technician or an operations manager, based on those roles, we have divided four main branches of RigER, which would be the HR and safety, which would be the operations, sales, and purchases. And the fifth one would be actually the administration of RigER. But the fifth one would be available only to champions who would be selected by their companies and will be administering and overseeing all RigER operations inside their companies. So four branches of courses based on user roles with a very narrow scope and which will provide insight to specific aspects of the RigER platform. As of right now, we have, as you can see on your screen, four courses which are the RigER orientation, which is basically a set of instructional videos that provide a look and feel to the platform itself and just act like a crash course for users who do not really have time and do not really need to know much, but need to start using RigER ASAP. So the orientation would be a good start for them. And next would be our RigER Basics course. The Basics is exactly what it sounds like. It's the basics of the course, and it discusses everything inside RigER, starting from the actual interface, icons, the terminology, and finishing by just doing the general workflow and describing documents and how they are tied together and what they are used for. The third course that we are going to talk about would be RigER Sales, and the main scope of RigER Sales is to provide the sales personnel with the necessary digital tools that they can use either on the field or on their desktop computer to create rental agreements and provide the clients with the quotes. The fourth course that we will discuss today would be the RigER Purchases, and this course is intended for purchases operations, and it basically simplifies and explains how a RigER Purchases module works and what we can do with it. So let's talk in detail about each of these courses. So the first one would be RigER Orientation, as I have already said. A set of three videos, three not so short, but also not so long videos. These videos are primarily focused on introducing the general document workflow that we have in system, which consists of creating a rental agreement, then creating some dispatching tickets, then actually invoicing. So it will introduce the workflow. It will show you how to create a rental service agreement. It will show you how to do multiple tickets, starting from rental ticket type delivery. We will discuss all the types of the tickets that we have. We will go through the delivering and returning the equipment from the client side, and then we can actually move on either in the middle of the job or by the end of the job. We can move on to the invoicing stage, and we will discuss the generation of the rental invoice inside the third video. So as I said, excuse me, as I already just mentioned, it's just a basic crash course for people who do not really want to spend much time on learning, but they need to have some information on how to start using RigER and maybe figure out all the details along the way. Now let's talk about the basic course, RigER Basics. So RigER Basics evolves around three main chapters. Those chapters would be the introduction to RigER, which will actually show the interface elements. We'll discuss all the buttons and forms and windows and what each of them does. Then it will discuss the core concepts of the interface elements and those buttons and actions that are associated with those elements. The second chapter will discuss the very core building blocks and pillars of RigER platform. It will focus on the main variables that are in place and actually govern the system, and it will also introduce some terminology that is used along the side, along the courses. So that terminology in conjunction with the core basics and understanding how it works will be a powerful tool for every single user who will later on, and most probably this will be a case, who will probably need to troubleshoot something that has not has not gone correctly. Excuse me. The third chapter will focus on dispatching and invoicing. We will talk about creating multiple tickets like the rental tickets and the field tickets, and we will talk about invoicing. And actually this third chapter will include the 3 videos from the RigER orientation course. So those 3 videos will again be repeated here, and alongside with some text and explanation that will be handy for users who want to spend a little bit more time on understanding what RigER has to offer and what it does. So, RigER Basics Introduction, the first chapter of the RigER Basics course. As you can see on your screen, we do have several lessons inside this introduction chapter. So it will mostly start with the welcome message, as every single course does in our academy. Then we will move on to the describing the general overview of the system, providing a general overview of the system. We'll describe the documents, the journals, what's the difference between a journal, a list, and we will discuss some actions and what dashboards actually you have in place by default configuration that you can utilize, and ease the process of understanding what you have under your hands. Then we will actually move on to discuss the user interface elements. You can see the menus, you can see the buttons and what they do. You will see the bottom tablets, and you will be able to distinguish between all the windows and the elements and understand which exact icon indicates what status of a document, like with a green check mark it would be posted or something like that, or with a red cross here, that file would be marked for deletion, etc. So very detailed and narrowed down description of all the interface elements that we have. Then we will move on to discussing what documents and journals are, and what they are, how they are tied together. The journals are basically lists of documents that we have in the system, and each type of document belongs into its own journal or into its own category. And most documents are tied together and interdependent with each other. So we will discuss all that interdependencies, and we will also focus on understanding how not to break something inside a system. If you are not aware on doing something, we will focus on providing insight on that process, so everything will go smooth and will work perfectly. And at the end of this chapter, as in the most cases in this course, at the end of this chapter, we will have a taste your knowledge of this chapter section, which is basically 10 to 15 questions that you can take in, for self-assessment and see how well you understood the actual topics that were discussed during the chapter. Now, the second chapter, the core basics, will focus on mainly understanding what RigER is, how it is built, and what it will do. It will discuss the core values, such as understanding the items, which are basically everything that we need to track and which have the capability of generating revenue. So everything inside RigER would be considered an item, be it a service, be it a consumable, be it a rental unit, be it even a truck. We will look at it as an item, and those item types will allow us to distinguish between what we can do with that item and how they are going to operate during the whole course of the job. Then we will move on to discussing in more detail which items are, what item types are. I'm sorry. We will move on to discussing what item types are, and those mainly, let's say, we will discuss the rental units, what they are, and how we can add a certain category, which would be the rental unit, and then add actual serial numbers, or what we call them in RigER unit numbers, to that particular category of equipment. Afterwards, after discussing the items, all the information about the items, we will move on to discuss the pricing mechanisms in RigER. So we do have a pretty flexible and powerful pricing mechanism in place, but we will, for the basic course, we will discuss only the price lists and the price agreements. So the price list, as you probably already know, will be the basic and general pricing that we will use for everyone in the database. And the price agreements would be client-oriented and can be limited with time. They can start and stop at a certain period of time, or we can just create a client-oriented price agreement and provide discounts or even markups if we need to inside that price agreement. And with the start date of that price agreement, these changes will be active, and all the new jobs will automatically pull that information from the price agreement for that particular client. Afterwards, we will discuss the how we make items available for dispatching, and this is rather a very important topic, because without making the items available for dispatch, we'll not be able to see them before we can select them, actually. So the dispatching, the purchasing is the process that we need to follow to make items available for dispatch, and purchasing would be a virtual action that we will perform in the system. We will need to virtually purchase those items, and they will become available after we generate a bill of lading and move those pieces of equipment that we have added into our database. We virtually move them into the shop from which they can be dispatched. Then we will move on to talk about companies, contacts, and locations. Obviously, we can have multiple contacts and multiple locations for one company, and we will discuss all the ties and how they work together. By the end of the chapter, we will discuss some very handy shortcut keys that we have in RigER, that we utilize in RigER, and we will provide a brief description of each of them. And we will also have the test your knowledge section, which again is a set of 10-15 questions test, and you can take it to see how well you did for this chapter. Now, the third chapter would be, as I have already stated, the instructional videos that we made for the RigER orientation course, and these videos would again discuss how to create the job, how to generate the rental tickets or field tickets or repair cards, and how to generate the invoices. And again, by the end of the chapter, we will have the test your knowledge section, which will look like, as you can see on your screen, like that little screenshot, which is a set of multiple choice questions. You will just read the question, choose one answer, and you will see whether that answer was correct or not. All right, so done with the basic course. Let's move on to the next course and start discussing the RigER sales course. Now, up to this point, those two courses were meant for introduction purpose, meaning they served the main purpose of introducing what RigER is, and they were applicable to basically every single user role that we have in RigER platform, and we have 14 of them. So The sales course and the next course, the purchases course that we are going to discuss, these courses are strictly based on user roles, and they are strictly discussing only the documents and the elements that we have in system that are necessary for those particular roles to operate. So again, the sales course would be based on user roles. Inside this course, we will discuss how the sales personnel can generate rental service agreements, rental agreements, how they can generate contracts, and how will they create client quotes, and how the items and prices will affect those quotes and those rental agreements. We will then discuss how we can do direct sales inside RigER without creating any rental service agreement or without the need of any rentals. And last but not least, we will move to discuss one of the latest additions to our RigER platform. We will discuss our new CRM module. This course is rather narrowed down and very focused on detail on the sales side. So aside from the sales personnel, this course can also be useful for management and for people who need to create rental service agreements. And I know that we do have some plans that divide the sales role and the dispatching role, and sometimes one person can do it all. So it's a course that will allow to deeply understand how the system works. It will provide a very detailed explanation of everything, document-wise and link-wise and icon-wise and window-wise. So it will be focusing a lot on many small details and will serve its purpose, I believe, and will allow the user to gain insight on how the sales logic works in RigER platform. So yeah, the user roles for the RigER sales course. As of right now, we do have only two roles that are necessary for the sales module to be operational. First, before we move on to the roles themselves, we will stress what user roles are. We will explain the user roles in general and the permission sets that are required for those roles, and also the functions, which are basically basically method of extending the user capability without adding any additional user roles. So we have a set of predefined functions, and those functions can be enabled or disabled by the system administrator for a certain user to be able to do certain tasks. So the two roles that we have in system in place for the sales module would be the salesperson role and the sales manager role. Now the names are pretty much self-explanatory, and they do not really need to be stressed a lot, but what we will accomplish when discussing those terminologies and those roles is we will provide a distinct definition what a salesperson can do, what a sales manager can do to manage or do a salesperson job, and where does the scope end for the salesperson, meaning the salesperson will be able to only see, let's say, his or her own documents or the ones that have been assigned to him, and the sales manager on the other hand will be able to see all the sales documents in the system, manage them, and assign those documents to different users, salespeople if it be. So moving on from the introduction to the user roles and from the discussion of specific sales roles, we will start talking about RSAs. And RSAs as rental service agreements, there will be stressed a lot of different types, what we can create and have in the system. We will have a detailed discussion about the description of elements. As I have already said, we will discuss the RSA journal, which is basically a list, a dynamic list that will allow us not only to see all the rental service agreements that are in place in the system, but will also allow us to filter it down, to do some specific actions on a selected rental service agreement. Like you can select the rental service agreement from a list, click on the generate button, and generate a document from within that window, or click on print and just print a quote for that particular selected RSA, etc. So we will also stress the actual creation process of a rental service agreement. We will stress the types. We will discuss all the types that we provide by default configuration for the rental service agreements, those being the OFR, OFS-GR for daily rentals and basic general rentals. Then we will focus on understanding why do we need to manually approve the rental service agreements and why it is done this way in the system. Then we will stress the prices and items in the RSAs. So the main point to understand here is that the rental service agreements are basically the documents for the job. They encapsulate every single other document that is connected to the job. So if we need to create tickets, they are going to be derivated from the rental service agreements. If we are generating invoices for the job, again, they are generated from within the rental service agreement. So basically, RSA is the job, and the prices in the RSA have the highest priority by default configuration. So if we have a, let's say, if we have a price list in place, then we have a price agreement in place, and we generate a new RSA, and inside that RSA we change the price for a certain item. That price is going to be the final price that goes to our invoices. So the next milestone for this sales course would be how to do direct sales. And direct sales will typically involve 3 documents in the RigER platform, those being the sales order, sales shipment, and the sales invoice. But since the sales shipment and the sales invoice are documents that are not typically accessed by any kind of a sales role that we have in the system, neither by a salesperson nor by the sales manager. They can only be viewed but not edited or created. We are going just to discuss the sales order in great detail, and we will just have a glance on what the sales shipment and sales invoice look like and what are they intended for. And last but not least, the CRM chapter, RigER CRM chapter of the sales module. CRM chapter, as of right now, it's very easy to understand and very easy to operate. We do have combined all the logic into 2 different documents that basically start with a simple lead, and the document is also called a lead. Then if the lead is qualified, it will be then converted to a sales event. And when the sales event occurred, we can actually generate a rental service agreement or a rental contract from that sales event. Let's move on and discuss our RigER purchases course. Again, RigER purchases is based on user roles, and those in this context being the purchase roles. And the purchase module itself is consistent from purchase order requests, purchase orders, invoices, and bill of ladings. We will also discuss a handy tool that we have in place, which is called Fast Purchase, which is basically an automation shortcut that will allow a user to do the whole purchasing process within one window with a couple of clicks. And last, we will focus on the sub-rental operations that we have in the system, because the sub-rental operations are directly managed by the purchase roles, and those roles are the only ones actually, except the administrator role in our system, that will allow to fully manage and manipulate the sub-rental operations. So the first chapter, we again will explain what user roles are. We will focus on understanding how the permissions work, how the set of functions work. Then we will describe our 2 purchase roles that we have active in the system, which are basically the purchase order requester role and the purchase manager role. So purchase order requester would be pretty much a very limited in the functionality role. the only thing that user with that role can do is just to generate the purchase order request and send it for approval. And this is intended for those cases that we have people on the field, or we need to request a purchase order, but we do not have the authority to create a purchase order. So those users will be granted with this role and will be able to request a purchase order. And the purchase manager would actually be the role that will be able to manage the whole life cycle of the purchase. We'll be able to create the purchase orders, the bills of ladings, the purchase invoices, etc. So the purchase module, what it has to offer. Again, we do have the purchase, and what you see on your screen on the right, that list is the names of documents that we have in place. So PO requests, purchase order requests, used for requesting a purchase order. Simple as that. Then we have the purchase orders, which can only be created or managed by the purchase manager role. Then we have the purchase invoices. We can replicate the client purchase invoice in our system. Then we have the bills of lading that will actually bring the inventory to our shops, yards, and will be making those pieces of equipment available for us to dispatch in the future. Then we will discuss the fast purchase, which again is a handy shortcut, automation shortcut that will allow to create the purchase orders, purchase invoices, and bills of lading all from within one window with just providing the simple sets of information that we need to have for those three documents. The subrental operations. How subrental works in RigER is pretty much very close to how actually rental works in RigER. We again have the subrental agreement, which is analogy of the rental agreement document that we have in place, and we have subrental tickets of two types. Subrental ticket type in, which will bring the inventory to our shop from the vendor that we are renting from, and the subrental ticket out will basically return those pieces of equipment that we have. So in this chapter, we will discuss all these documents. We will understand how to create a subrental agreement. Then we will create subrental tickets. Then we will provide with the detailed explanation and detailed explanation about the documents, and we will actually show the process and how it is done with a video lesson. Now, tests and final exams. Let's talk about a little bit about what we have in terms of testing and final examination. Now, as I have already mentioned, we do have simple self-assessment tests by the end of each chapter in the RigER's Basics course. We do not have those tests, chapter tests in the sales and purchases course because we just have the final exams. And the final exams are more intended to understand how proficient a user has become by passing those courses and how well he can manage the operations that he is assigned to. So the final exam will be the source on which we base to understand whether the user can receive a certification or not. So the final exams will be obviously graded. They will have a minimum pass mark, and that pass mark, that minimum pass mark, will actually depend on a course. It's either going to be a 60%, 65%, 80%, 85%. So it will be the user will be notified what the pass mark is, and he will be able to follow the guidelines to understand how to pass that score to receive a certificate. So the tests and final exams will most likely be comprised of multiple choice questions. They can have some surveys in them, and they will probably have one or two questions that will be a free form, and the user will be able just to write something in a field and provide their own answer to the question that is logged there. So that way we will be able to see the thought process that the user is actually using and understand how proficient he thinks he is for the intended usage. The final exams will not have time limits, but the time will be logged, and that way we can see how much time actually the user spent on the final exam, but that will not affect the score in any way. We will just provide the user with the final exam set of questions, and they will be able to just pass that exam as at their own pace and as they wish. Yeah, certification. In terms of certification, and yeah, that is not our certification, as you can see. It's just something I pulled off of the internet while making this slide. The certifications will be, as I have already said, a distinguishing factor that we can understand that this particular user is at a level that we can be confident that they have the ability to perform the actions and the job responsibilities that are offered by RigER in their operation scope. So not only for us, but for the companies that will assign their employees to pass the RigER Academy courses, this certification mechanism will allow to understand whether that user is ready to use RigER in the manner that they intend to, and whether that user can actually be proficient in RigER or needs some more time understanding the concepts and the workflow of the whole platform. So yeah, the certification again is granted upon passing the final exam, and the look and feel of the certificate is actually again course dependent, and will be provided for each course itself in a different style. All right, so let's talk about what we have out on the corner and see what we have coming up in the near future. So upcoming courses, we have planned 4 more upcoming courses for this phase 1 academy process. And again, just to emphasize again, the phase 1 was the introductory and user role-based courses. So next, we are going to be rolling out the operations level 1 for the dispatching and repairs. We will discuss 4 major operational user roles that we have in place. We will discuss in detail the rental tickets, their types, the field tickets, the difference between field and rental tickets. We will discuss all the repair operations. We will discuss rental breaks, rig moves, internal transfers, and all the fun stuff that the dispatchers and the field guys have to do during their jobs. Next would be the operations level 2, which would be excuse me, more of an advanced course, and will strictly focus on inspections on the quality control side and the preventive maintenance side. So we will discuss in a very, very detailed manner how the inspections are done, what the inspection cards and the registers are, what the defective units lists are, what the quality control can do after inspection, and how the workflow is supposed to be done. Then we will discuss the preventive maintenance, that the mechanisms that we have in place and how we can schedule the maintenance, and a lot more in that particular operations level 2. Now, a spoiler here, the prerequisite for this operations level 2 is going to be a mandatory passing of the RigER basics and RigER operations level 1. So the user has at least to have the basic idea what RigER is, and be proficient in basically dispatching and repairs before passing to the next level. Because the higher we go, in the levels, the more detail and I would say detail and scope oriented we become, and more harder it's going to get to understand what we have in place. So yes, we will have our prerequisites, and those would be to pass the operational level 1 and the RigER basics course. The third course that we will roll out would be RigER for billing and invoicing. And most of you guys know that we do have a very, very powerful invoicing mechanism in place. And we have different types of invoices. And in this course, we will focus on those types of invoices. We will discuss all the necessary steps to take to create an invoice. We will discuss the different types. We will understand how the rental periods work, how billing cycles work, how we can do different combinations of those, and how we can auto-generate invoices, how we can export it to, let's say, QuickBooks or Sage or other accounting software, and very, very, very much more of information that will be associated with billing and invoicing. And last but not least, for this phase, we are going to roll out a RigER administration course. This course will have a very, very specific and narrow scope and will be only intended for those who actually will be the champions in their respective companies, the champions of RigER. This course will not have any prerequisites and mandatory passing of some other courses, but it would be advisable that the user for this course, that the one that signs up for this course, has at least the knowledge that the RigER Basics course has to offer and understands the whole document workflow in RigER. So the administration's course will strictly focus on how to set up and configure the actual platform, the database, and the variables that are connected with it. We will discuss on how to create business entities. We will discuss the different types of addresses, how to set up taxes, how to set up some schedules. We will understand how the administrator can enable and disable modules and features, and we will understand the process that it can lead to. So for instance, for example, if we enable, let's say, inspections feature in the system, we will need to understand the consequences it brings with itself and what new documents and other registers are involved. So if we suddenly decide to disable the same inspections module, we will need to understand what steps we need to do before disabling the actual feature. So that would be one thing that the administrator role will actually focus on. Then again, we will discuss the user roles and the setup of those roles. We will teach those users who sign up for this course that we successfully utilize the method of least privilege. So we try to give the user as much access as he needs for the particular job responsibility that he has to overtake or she has to overtake. So we will exercise that terminology, and we will explain how to set up the user roles in that manner, and just to grant the necessary functions and the necessary ability to perform those functions in the manner that will not negatively affect the system and will not grant the user more access than he needs to have. Then we will understand how the system logs work and how to parse them, how to find something special or something that we really need to let's say focus our attention on, maybe a document change date or something like that. We'll understand how system logs can help us, and we will focus on a lot on troubleshooting and how we can troubleshoot the system and what steps will actually be involved and what errors will be defined by some actions. And probably much more in this course, but it will have to come up with the process of creation of the course itself. So we will discuss a lot of administration topics inside this course. Let's move on and see the actual timelines that we have proposed for rolling out these courses. So operations level 1 will be rolled out by June 2020, probably June 1st, 2020. Then the operations level 2 would be rolled out by August 1st. The billing and invoicing would be probably rolled out before October 10. And by the December 2020, by December 10, 2020, we will roll out the RigER administration course. Then the fun part begins. We are going to initiate phase 2, which is basically sub-industry product related courses, meaning that we will create specialized courses by specific RigER product. And you know, and you have already seen in the introductory section that we have different RigER products in our RigER product family. We will be focusing on different type of sub-industries, and we will gear our products and courses to accommodate the specific types of businesses that our clients are running, and how to utilize those particular products in the manner that will be most efficient for them. So the timeline for this courses, for this phase 2, would be starting December 15 probably, and we will be done by August 2021. And I have said the word probably more than 3 times here, because as you all know, we are in times that speaking at a level of some certainty is not really correct. So we are planning, we are committed to be doing what we do, and we are committed to creating all these courses in a timely manner, and provide our amazing users with the ability to enjoy and gain knowledge from them. So with that in mind, let's move on to the Q&A section and see what questions we have.
Yeah, we actually do have a lot of questions, and thank you guys for being so active. So I will start from the beginning. The first one is how to register to your courses, and are they for anyone or for RigER users only?
Okay, so the registering is pretty simple. We will provide you with a link to the RigER Academy in the next slide. And the registering process is very straightforward. It's just a sign-up button. You click on it, you provide your email, which will be your login information. You provide a password for yourself, and you are signed in. So that login will provide you with an access to all our courses. But the enrollment to the courses will be course-based, meaning you will either gain an instant access to those courses, or you will need to have an authorization from your managers or from us to have access to the particular course.
Okay, good, thanks. The next question is how often are courses updated? What version of RigER they support now?
Now, all the 4 courses that we have in place are updated and corresponding to the latest version of RigER that we have. So all the new features that we have in RigER, which are relevant to the course, will be discussed in the course. And we are consistently updating all the courses, so you will always have the updated and corrected information in the actual courses, as you can see in your new versions of your databases.
Okay. The next question. Do you plan special course for mobile users?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yes, we do. We do plan a special course, and not just one course for mobile users. As you guys know, we have several mobile applications in place. We have the RigER Fields, we have the RigER Purchases, we have the mobile oilfield operations applications, and we can either do a course by the app, or we can do a course by the intent of the app, meaning what purpose it serves and how the functions and operations are done inside that application. So we will have to decide on that with our internal discussion. But yes, we will be planning, and we will be rolling out mobile courses for mobile applications.
Okay, thank you. The next question I see is, what course I need to take to learn about fuel tickets?
Yes, so the field tickets and the rental tickets, everything that is related to dispatching, uh, is briefly described in the basics course, and it's going to be detailed and thoroughly described in the operations level 1 course, which we will be rolling out next. So as of right now, we have only the basics course that will accommodate the need to understand how field tickets work or rental tickets work. But the operations level 1 would be the course to go for that purpose.
And here's the question from Fernando. Are these courses for RigER admin, are there courses for RigER admin users vs RigER standard users?
So yeah, again, as I said, all the courses on the phase 1 are going to be role-based, except the basics course and the orientation course. So standard user, we do not really have that kind of a user in RigER system. We have the administrator user role, and we have different roles that will grant a minimum scope of functions, a minimum set of functions that are necessary for that particular scope, for that particular user. So again, the courses will be based on user roles, and the administration course will be based on the administrative role and will be intended for the RigER champions or administrators.
And one more question from Fernando. Is it possible to develop a custom set of courses, or only standard courses will be available?
That's a really good question. We will try to cover everything that we have in place right now in RigER right now in the courses that we have planned for. Of course, we are always open to suggestions, and we are always eager to communicate with our clients, with our followers, and with people who are somehow introduced to us and to RigER. We will be glad to hear from you and hear what ideas you have, and we will actually consider it. Yeah, we might even make a custom course for a specific operation scope that you may need. So we will need to sit down, we will need to discuss what ideas you have, and we will need to come up with a solution, as always.
I have a few more questions from Peter. So the first one is, can your system be integrated with accounting suite system?
Integrated?
Yep.
Yes, it sure can. Right now, we do have several integration mechanisms in place, with QuickBooks Online, with QuickBooks Desktop, with Sage 50, etc. And yeah, I would say if the accounting suite that you use, if we do not have an integration with it, we can build it as long as the accounting suite has an open API. So if that accounting suite allows connections to it and allows to receive information, we can build that integration. And again, that's one thing that we will need to discuss with you if you need to have it.
And the second question is, how long in video hours is each of those courses?
Oh, that's really dependent on the user, I would say. It depends on the pace the user reads at, and it depends on the speed actually that the user will watch the videos on. I mean, I personally always watch videos at least 1.25 or 1.5 times faster than the usual average speed. So it's dependent on the user, but the basic course, I would say it would take probably 10 to 15 hours to go through, reiterate, understand, and pass the exams, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And one more question from Sean. Can you go over the rollout dates again for the near future training modules?
Can you
just show the dates again? Could you show the dates again for this one?
There we go. So operations level 1 by June 1st, 2020. The operations level 2 by August 1st, 2020. Billing and invoicing by October 10, and administration by December 10.
Okay, as far as I can see, these are all questions. Anyway, if you have more questions, you always can contact us by the email or phone number or just contact form on our site. So go ahead and write your questions to us anytime.
And to provide some more information, as of right now, we have decided to make RigER Academy access to all courses free for everyone until June 1st. So you can see the link at the bottom of your screen. So please visit the link, sign up with your email and password, and enjoy the courses.
Okay, thank you all so much for being here with us today. I just wanted to add that we will have 2 webinars next week, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday. We will be sending the invitations to you on Monday as usually, with only information and the links to register. So stay tuned and have a great day.
Yes, thank you, and stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.
Yep, bye.